G'day, legends. It's Jai, that Aussie metal guy here. Before we get stuck into another great interview brought to you by Crannk.com and thatmetalstation.com, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and that way you can keep up to date with all the best music and interviews from all over the world. G'day, how you all going? It's Jai, that Aussie metal guy here with Crannk.com and with thatmetalstation.com. So no matter where you are in the world, I'm getting to have a chat with Noah Anderson, guitarist for Taking Balfour, who are due to release their second album, Dawn of Polaris, 21st of October. Noah, cheers for joining me, mate.
Yeah, of course, man. It's a pleasure. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Absolutely great, man. And fucking awesome last name, bro. Share the same last name there. I'm really glad to have come across Taking Balfour, man. First off, for the uninitiated, can you tell us a little bit about who Taking Balfour
are? Well, we're a hard, I guess the main genre that we'd be classified as, we're a hard rock band out of Guelph, Ontario. We formed early on in the pandemic with me and the vocalist Spencer Gill. I was the one who wrote all of the first album, as it was just me and him. So I played guitar, bass, drums, and recorded, mixed, and mastered our first album. And then after that, we shot our first music video. We had hired musicians do the drums and bass for it. And then from there on out, just started to scout out musicians to create the lineup that it is today. And then throughout 2020 and 2021, we came across our drummer, T.O.A.D, our bass player, Orion Park, and then the icing on the cake would be Zach Culp, which is our keys and sample guy. He really makes the project, that much better, in my opinion.
It definitely does. It rounds out the sound of Taking Balfour as well. What was that whole process like for you guys forming in 2000, I think around 2019? What was that process like? It would have been a crazy process to start a band around that time as well.
Yeah, it was very interesting to say the least. Like late 2019, I was writing I have a home studio, so I was writing some stuff. I posted an instrumental song, and it was actually the song "As Above, So Below," which is on the first album. And I posted it on Facebook for my SoundCloud link, and then Spencer messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I'd like to work with you and try out for your band," even though it wasn't really a band at that point. It was just me making music. And then once we both realized how much we wanted to, do it and go forward with it, we started to really put in effort to make it happen and to find, like-minded, committed people like me and him. And then, we had our first show lined up April of 2020. And I'm glad we didn't play it, to be honest. We weren't ready to play it. We were excited to get out there, but I'm glad, as shitty as it is, I'm glad that it happened at the time it did, because it gave us, pretty much a full year to just really dial in our sound, hire main people, because we had 5 drummers when we were first starting out, just people that would flop, seem like they were interested, and then a month later they would drop out. We had one bass player that didn't work out before our current bass player now. But yeah, it was an interesting start of a project, that's for sure. It was a weird time to start, but like I said, I'm glad that it happened when it happened, because if we would have played that first show, who knows what would have happened. But since we waited that year, we really got to, dial in the sound, get tighter and tighter, practice the set. And since now that we've been out playing shows for a year, people noticed that we took that time to really get tight before making our debut out to, the local rock and metal scene here.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of work with a band, starting out and kind of getting that core group settled. People don't realize how much work it takes to not only make an album, but be in a band. You're working all the time. I know what the grind is like, because I'm always grinding like this, and then I've got a day job as well. So to get that core unit together and find a group of people, I know it sucked not being able to play those shows for that year, but it kind of would have been also a blessing in disguise for Taking Balfour as well, working out the core lineup and then working on this next album. That first one was a good debut album, but you can see the progression in the sound.
Thank you
guys, especially in this album, Dawn of Polaris. I've really enjoyed it. From that opening little number, Echo, that jumps into Neptune, he really does have a great versatility in his voice, Spencer.
Yeah, he's great, man. He's great to work with. He's the lead. He's gonna laugh when he sees this, but he's the lead singer, so he can be a pain in the ass sometimes. me and him really, we're best friends, but we butt heads sometimes. There's been a lot of ideas that at first he wasn't sure about, but the whole band's like, no, dude, this is solid. Like, there's some good like foundation here. And then when he finally writes some good melodies and good lyrics, or I also write, I actually write quite a bit of the lyrics.
Yep.
But once that happens, you realize how good the song actually is. There's quite a few songs off this album, like I think Watcher and The Witness, when it first started off, like it was probably 40 BPM slower. He didn't like it at first. Then we started to speed it up. We got good lyrics, and like, so yeah, like he's since we started, like when he first met me in 2019, he was used to singing pop punk music.
Okay.
So he kind of really had to dive into a different sound and a different genre of music altogether. And you can still kind of hear like that in his voice. Like a lot of people would compare it to like Billy Talent or Incubus or bands like that, which to me, like, that's a compliment. Those are both great, great bands. But yeah, he's definitely he's improved, and he sharpened his skill and his voice throughout the last couple of years for sure. Like this album, like it's impressive. Like he's a pleasure to work with, but he's a pain to work with sometimes too.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, The Watcher and The Witness, you do have a film clip for that one over as well, that kind of premiered June 3rd. Was that the first, or that was the second single, wasn't it? The first one was Neptune, or was it the other way around?
No, it was the other way around. Yeah, the first one, I think we shot it in April this year. I think that, I got let out in June. And then I think Neptune dropped 3 weeks, a month ago, was the video.
Yep.
So we shot that one. We shot that one a couple months after Watcher. And I'm glad we used that song. Like, Watching the Witness is a great song. It's high energy. It's a banger. But, like Neptune, we didn't know how good it was until we shot the video, to be honest. Like you said, like the beginning sample, like echoes of the whole album that starts off the album, that wasn't even supposed to be on the album. So that's just like, hey, I wrote a new sample like for our live show, and I listened to it. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be the intro of the album, buddy. Like it's just that it just draws you. It's such a good build up. And at the beginning, we weren't even gonna use the hi hat, the 4 counts. We were gonna take that out for the album. Yep. But since he made that sample and then it slowly fades out, we decided to keep that hi-hat to go into the album. It's like, oh, wow, like boom, there's the cymbal catch. So it really worked out that way for us.
Yeah, I really like that when you get an album, especially this one, the sound samplers you kind of lead into the album, because I'm a full, like I can listen to singles, but when you put on a whole album, like for me, when I get albums, like I jumped into Dawn of Polaris, I played it from start to finish, went back start to finish, you know what I mean? Then you get the full, the full, what the artist is trying to say and convey to you, the full message of that album. And some people forget what it is enjoys, to listen to whole albums, and that build up from that echoes into Neptune. And you said he has all the different sounds. You'll mention Incubus, and I also got a bit of Serge Tankian, but also, he's his own person as well, Spencer, which must make it fun to create music with him, because at different moments you have like a little bit of feeling of funk, blues, you know what I mean, with this progressive sound. It must be fun doing the whole songwriting process and creating music, not kind of locking yourself into one genre of metal or rock. You can bounce around through it all.
And it's funny you say that, because like when I went into this band, I was like, oh, like, because since I was in high school, there was always a really good like heavy metal scene in Guelph and surrounding areas in Ontario. When I started this band, I'm like, oh, like I don't want it to be that, because there's so many great metal bands with crazy shredding guitars, and I'm like, I just want to make like heavy hitters, like catchy riffs, like early like metalcore riffs, and then like I didn't know, and then after we had the band, I'm like, we need a keyboard player, because like Spence comes from pop punk. That's his favorite genre, if he likes to admit it or not. It is. But like me, my favorite bands are more like European bands. Like my favorite band of all time is Opeth. So like the keys and the organs in Opeth and bands like that, like that's what really wanted me to get that extra. Instead of getting the lead guitar player with guitar solos, I kind of wanted to branch out and do more of like the synths and the organs and like the samples. So, and then, like our bass player, like his favorite band's Metallica, and he likes the Megadeth and the thrash scene. Like myself, like I like Opeth, but then I started off listening to like, Killswitch Engage, and then that turned into, like Alexisonfire, System of a Down, and like, like Linkin Park, and then that turned into like Cannibal Corpse and Deicide, and then Opeth and Hypocrisy. So like, And then I still love, like I love the hard rock bands that are, are still great, like Chevelle, Breaking Benjamin, Deftones. So like we kind of take a little bit of like everything when I'm writing. Like as you've listened to the album, like there's some songs that are like you can tell it's very metal driven, and then some songs where it's more like alternative rock driven. But then when you add like keys and samples and organs, and my bass player, he's also like a lead player. I'm more of a rhythm guitar player myself, so like they add that extra spice to the mix. So it lets me just kind of work on more of the structure and like the foundation, and then they put the icing on the cake after that it's done.
Yeah, can you tell me about the track Lightyears Away? Because we were talking about the different ups and downs, man. That one's like a real kind of, melodic kind of track in there that pulls you back a little bit. And, for me, as I was mentioning, whole albums, and they all have their place on the album, and Lightyears Away is a nice track, man. It sits there nicely on the album.
Appreciate that. And we didn't know if we were going to keep it, to be honest. I'm glad you said that, because
I'm glad you did.
It shows us, a stranger's opinion who said like, yeah, you should keep that.
Yeah.
So it means a lot because we were very close to pulling it. So the story of that song is like, when we wrote this album, Spencer, coming from like a softer music background than myself, like he wanted to write more of a softer, more radio rock kind of hit. And we didn't have one on the album that was that soft yet. And then Orion, our bass player, came to practice. He's like, oh, I got a really cool bass line. And he was just showing it and then we're like, oh, well, we got to use that. So we used it. We wrote that song, and it's very soft. It's very different. Some people would argue it doesn't belong on the album, but the album's pretty up and down. Yeah. It starts off with two pretty heavy hitters like Neptune and Watching the Witness, and then it goes into Awakening, which is a pretty slow, eerie song. So like the album is kind of like an up and down journey. That's how we tried to do the track list, at least. But yeah, Lightyears was the last song we wrote for the album right before we hit the studio, and we didn't know if it was going to make the cut, to be honest. And at the end, and getting some feedback from our partners and stuff like that, we decided to keep it on the album.
I'm glad you did, because it really shows a versatility to you guys as well. As you said, you started out, you had the heavies, and for me, a good prog album, you can go through these different styles of music and genres, and you're going on a journey with the artist and with the band as well. So I really enjoyed it, man. Definitely had its bloody place in there. So it is one that was really glad that came in there. Tell us about the track, The Jester's Fool, man.
So that's one of my favorites to play live. It's a pretty
good
catchy
energy.
riff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool energy. That was the second song we wrote together as like the current full lineup. The first one was actually Watching the Witness. That was the first song we wrote, a year and a half ago as a group that it is today. And when we wrote Watcher, like, I don't know, like I found the riff, Orion started to play with it, and then I don't know if that was one where Spence had a hard time coming up with the melody. Oh no, so when I came home, we didn't have a melody, and since we were just starting out, I wanted to do more backups myself and like experiment with some like more like raspy stuff, not just like screaming, which there is a little bit of that on the album, but more like a raspy, different kind of approach. So I came home with it, and that's one of the ones on the album that I wrote the lyrics for. I wrote like the melody for, because I wanted to do something like different that like gave him a little bit of a break in the verse while he was like singing, catch his breath, and like I gave like the raspy backups, kind of like as like the first and second person like talking back and forth. So like and like lyrically, like it's it's a fun one to sing and play for sure. It's one of the catchier ones on the album for sure.
Yeah, it's a really great album. One, I'm glad. I'm always pretty excited when Curtis sends over stuff, because he's always got onto some great bands, and it's really cool to meet guys like you and bands from the underground scene. But how's it going over there in Ontario? With as you said, you've been playing live again now for the last year. How have things been going for you guys playing live now as a core unit?
It's great, man. We just last weekend we played Hamilton and Toronto. They were fun. Our keyboard player Zach, he just got into doing lights, so we just spent thousands of dollars on a light setup. Spent like I don't know, dozens and dozens of hours programming them to our songs. So he has like strobes and lasers and the fog machines, and like they're all programmed with different colors for all the songs.
Wow.
So we've really like made our live performance something special that stands out. But yeah, the scene here is great. Rock and metal in Southern Ontario, it's always been good. And I think after the pandemic, it's, you know, more bands being bored or more musicians just formed a band. So there's a lot of bands out there right now, and we've met some great people along the way, some great bands we want to continue to play with. And now it's just, you know, like networking, building connections, talking to, you know, like booking agencies, promoters, trying to get into different cities that we have yet to play. Like, you know, Ottawa and Montreal, we're hoping to do that late this year, early next year. And then, you know, more go the west direction of like London and Windsor.
Yep.
And then go from there. Right now, I think we've played 10 or 11 shows, and, you know, the first one was great, and they keep getting better. Like we like, cause, you know, like playing in our rehearsal space and, you know, like trying to rock out and get your groove going to what you want to do live is one thing, but when you're playing in front of, you know, lights, you get that anxiety, you're sweating, like you're playing in front of people who have no idea who you are, and, you know, you want to prove yourself and, you know, show people that, you know, you have what it takes. But, you know, like we've slowly been improving.
Get those
our live
guys
shows.
that are standing in the back like this to slowly move forward and rock out a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
It must have been fun making this album, Dawn of Polaris, as well, considering that the first album, the way you made it, and this one, you've got an actual band together. It must have been a little more, I don't know, enjoyable, as you'd say, to kind of make the album, or a little bit easier to have that contribution of all the bandmates coming in there, as you mentioned a couple of times, Orion coming in, and then Zachary, and then Spencer, and it's all kind of, and Tim, all having an input on the album as well.
Yeah, and it's different for sure. You can tell from listening to the first album to this one, like,
yeah,
we've definitely stepped it up a notch, because the first album was just me. Yeah. As in the instrumentation, like the instruments, like that was just all me. So I didn't have anybody else to butt heads with, or like bounce ideas off of. So writing this one, like you can still tell it has like the Taking Balfour sound, but it's just so different. It's much, you know, like it's a lot more high energy than the first album. I think it's quicker. There's faster songs. You know, we play with, you know, like BPMs and time signatures a bit more than the first one. But yeah, it's been a pleasure working with the guys. Like, they're all really great to work with. I think all of the songs except for one we wrote together. Sorry, two. Neptune, me and Spencer actually wrote a long time ago in our last bass player's basement. And we were like, we should use this song. And eventually, after writing a bunch of new songs, we brought it back. And that ended up being the music video and the opener to the album. And, you know, the other song that I wrote sitting on my couch was Polaris. So like, I'm proud of that song. It's, you know, it's a 7-minute song. I wrote that one by myself, and I brought it to practice, and they're like, dude, we have to use this. We don't care that we weren't part of the process, but it's a great song. So let's do it. And then, you know, Zach added in the strings and the keys and really like brought out that like eerie vibe to the song. So like, even though I wrote the song, like without them putting the icing on the cake, the cool like drums and toms in the verse that builds up, like without them the song would be nothing. Even though it's a great guitar riff and has some catchy parts in it, but, you know, like the other guys adding their 2 cents and, you know, like their input and like adding, you know, like their personality to the song really brings it out and brings light to the song. But besides that, like we wrote all the songs together at practice. Spencer's a avid bike rider in the summer, so if he's like, I'm going biking, it's like, awesome, then we have a writing day in the jam space, so we just write.
Yeah, nice.
But, you know, he's mentioned lately he's wanted to be more, you know, involved in the writing process going forward, like as in while being there while we do the instruments. Because like I said before, there's been times where he didn't really like the song at first until it really came to, you know, fruition with like the vocals and the melodies and the lyrics. Because you don't know what a lot of great songs, there's 4/4 simple chords, but you have a beautiful melody over it, beautiful lyrics, and that song is a hit because of the lyrics and the melody. It's not because of the instrument, because there's lots of very simple songs in the world and out there that are brilliant songs, but if you break it down, you listen to the guitar or drums, it's simple.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, like
no, totally agreed. Where's the best place people can get along and support Taking Balfour? I.e., you know, support one, but pre-orders, chucking pre-orders. What's the deal with are you taking pre-orders for the album? Tell us all about that. Physicals, merch.
We just got our pre-order link like 2 days ago. We just submitted the album. Like we put out the singles and the music videos. The album's gonna be dropping October 21st, and we just got the pre-order link, so we'll be posting that like in the next couple of days. www.takingbalfour.com. That's our website, which has links to everything, all of our live shows, our YouTube, our music videos. It has links to our Spotify and Apple Music. And then the social media that you can follow us at, we're on TikTok, Taking Balfour. We're on Instagram, also Taking Balfour, at Taking Balfour. And then the only one that's different is our Facebook page, which is Taking Balfour Official. And we're active on all those. We're constantly posting stories, commenting, engaging with the fans that we have, and just trying to grow the fan base and get the music out there to, you know, more people to listen to.
Yeah, get on, support Taking Balfour. Look, Noah, do you have any last words, shout outs, thank yous, anything I may have forgotten you'd like to add in there, my friend?
Just thanks to everybody so far who's, you know, support us along the way, friends and family, and to my bandmates for being great people to work with, and all the people that helped with this album and making it come to life. You know, like I produced it actually. Our keyboard player Zach engineered it, but a huge shout out to Andrew Lozon. He was the one who mixed the album and really brought the punch and the sound to it. Alex Snape was the one who mastered it, and Krusty at Krusty Media, Michael. He's been a pleasure to work with doing our music videos, and you know, the last one, Neptune, you know, hit 7,000 in like 3 days. It had a super good reach. We did nothing. We did no ads or promotion, all organic. It just took off on YouTube, and like, it's a great song and video, and I think people noticed that. So our subscribers grew tenfold, like they tripled within a couple of days. So it's just a matter of time, you know, putting out more music that we'll have more for everybody to hear very soon in the next couple of months.
Exactly. And quickly on the YouTube, everybody, when you're watching the video, don't forget to hit the subscribe. It definitely helps Taking Balfour, and it helps us as well. Keeps us both doing what we're doing. Look, man, this has been an absolute pleasure, Noah. Everybody go check out Taking Balfour's first album, self-titled. It did come out 2020. Also got a couple of singles off the forthcoming Dawn of Polaris album. We have Neptune and The Watcher and The Witness. Dawn of Polaris comes out 21st of October. Everybody get it, put it in the stereos, turn it up really loud. Neighbors are going to want to hear it as well. Cheers, mate.
Thank you so much for plugging it, man, and have a great morning.
Cheers, brother. Cheers.
You could see it.